Was there much attention paid to occupational health and safety in that plant?
I would say there was, at that time, it was probably on a par with other places that I'd worked, but in comparison to what happens today, I think with most industrial places, it would have been seen as very lax in terms of occupational health and safety. So, in terms of environmental things too, things were pretty relaxed. And so I worked, with liquid formaldehyde, and when we'd have an upset or something would go wrong, I personally put formaldehyde into the sewers. And I mean, that was the only thing we had available at the time, and you knew that just went straight out into the North Saskatchewan River there for the folks downstream. So at that time, things were very lax in terms of the kind of controls and things. I don't think there was protective equipment. Things like formaldehyde are really quite nasty things to be around inhaling and stuff. And so there were masks of various kinds. And because that's the only way you could work in proximity with this stuff, you tended to use them. But there was no requirement to do so. I mean, no one was telling you had to wear protective equipment and that sort of thing. So I would say health and safety at that time was pretty lax.
And you're working with all these dangerous chemicals as well. What about fires? What protection was there for possible fires?
Well, the interesting thing is that because these places are quite complex and dangerous places, especially if there's a fire, they had an internal fire crew that was trained that I was part of, and at the time. So junior operators, I think every junior operator in the chemical section was on the fire crews, and so the idea there was that you would be trained to handle a fire, and that if a fire did break out inside the plant, although the Edmonton Fire Department would probably respond, and I don't know, perhaps even the Strathcona County would respond at that time, but they would be stopped at the gate. And the internal fire crew was supposed to handle most of the stuff. My impression was we didn't take it too seriously. We would consider most of the training days as sort of a day away from work, and I wouldn't have considered us to be well-trained firefighters at that time. But fortunately, during the time I was there, we never had to respond to a fire.
Was it a major issue for the workers in terms of collective bargaining and get some of these kinds of safety changes made?
I think health and safety was, and I think especially in those areas of the plants, I know that the women working in the fiber and the cigarette tow areas were. I don't know this for sure, but just sort of anecdotally, it seemed to me that there were greater numbers of sort of injuries in those areas, partly because of the kind of work they did. The fiber area, they'd be changing spindles on machines while they're still running, and threading things through treadles and of various kinds, and just the kind of job that required you to put your fingers in harm's way as a routine thing. So my impression was that there was a greater emphasis, a greater demand coming from that area. But certainly all areas, I think, had issues. If you talked to them, we all had something.
Some of the least safe jobs were mainly being done by women.
That was my feeling, yes. And because my wife at that time worked for a couple of months, and my impression was she worked harder and in a more potentially dangerous environment than I did. And that was it was in the fiber area, so.
So fiber and cigarette tow was mainly women, and the
yes.
Operating people in the chemical area were all men.
All men, where I'm sure there were no women working in the sort of chemical area, in the operational chemical part. it was mostly women working in the cigarette tow and the fiber section, although I think there were also some men working there then. So it was, yeah, there was a definite sort of division of labor there.